To make a 9 square pillow, step 1 says that you're going to use the pattern S1 or an L1 if you're choosing to make a large pillow. But you're going to trace 9 squares, 5 of one color, 4 of the other. Choose the ugly side, of course. Match up your pattern to the corner and the edge, so that way you save yourself some time. And then simply trace and cut out the S1s. So you may cut the S1s. When you're finished with that, you're going to take the S2 and you're going to center it onto the square, and you're going to trace and not cut out the S2s. It's really important that you do not cut these out because these are meant to be sewing lines. So once I'm finished, I'm going to simply take my scissors and cut out the first line of the S1s and make sure that I keep my S2 in the middle. You're going to do this repeatedly 9 times, so you have 5 of one color, 4 of the other, with an S2 traced on the back. Step 4 says to lay out your squares pretty side up in the direction that you will see them. So your 5 patterns go to the 5 points here, and then you're going to have your 4 in between. Step 5 says to lay the top left corner fabric onto the middle fabric, and you're going to do your best to match up your sewing lines. And you're going to sew these 2 fabrics together. You're going to start at the top of the line, sew down the line, and then sew at the bottom. I want the entire fabric to be sewn. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Match up my sewing line with my needle, lower my presser foot, bring the needle down, and I'm going to go ahead and start for 2, back stitch, and finish down the line. Making sure you do the entire length, because otherwise your pillow will have a hole. Then sew off the line. Lift your presser foot, lift your needle, cut your threads short, and then repeat it again. It helps if you open it up. You're going to lay now the right side onto the center and sew. When you're finished, you're going to open it up, and then repeat that 3 different times for your rows. Now that you have your 3 strips made, make sure that you open them up and press your seams open so that everything lays really flat. You can just simply take the iron, open up your seams, and press it. You're going to do that for all 3 strips. Then you're now at step 7, and you're going to simply take the first strip and lay it on the middle strip and sew across the top. Before you do that, you need to, of course, match up your seams. And if for some reason one is a little bit longer than the other, you can go ahead and re-sew this seam a little bit shorter, making them line up. When you're ready, put some pins in, and you're going to backstitch, sew, backstitch. 1 strip, then you're going to open it back up, do the same for the bottom. Peek to make sure your seams match up, sew across the bottom, and open it back up, and then you will have the face of your pillow finished. A good suggestion when lining up your strips and making sure your seams are lined up would be to take a straight pin and pin your seams together. Physically take the pin and place it inside the seam to make sure that both of your seams line up, and that way when you sew it won't move or go out of place. As you are sewing, make sure that your sewing line is straight across all 3 fabrics around your entire pillow. If it's not, go ahead and draw yourself a brand new line matching them all up. Take a ruler and make a really straight line. Notice how these lines are matching up. You want that to happen all the way around. As you sew, make sure that you are pressing your seam open, and you are going ahead and sewing that seam just like you ironed it where it is open. Work your way all the way around until you get to your stop point. When you are finished sewing your strips, you may go ahead and iron and press open your seams like you did for the rows. You're going to now do that for your final 2 stitches. Then step 11 says to check the front of your pillow, check for any crooked sewing lines or squares, and fix it accordingly. You want to make sure you're at least checking where some 4 squares come together, because now is your chance to fix that. Step 12 says to use the front of the pillow, trace it upside down, pretty side to pretty side, onto the back of your fabric. Simply go ahead and trace the outside of your pillow onto the back, and don't forget to include start and stop points to your project. Once you draw your line, you may cut on the line and go ahead and sew on your pillow. You're gonna start at the stop point, back stitch, sew all the way around, and finish at your stop point and back stitch. Trim your corners and flip it inside out so you can stuff your pillow. Once you are finished flipping your pillow inside out, you may use a stick to go ahead and push your corners out. You want to make sure they come to a fine point, making a nice square shaped pillow. You may need to iron the front if it got wrinkled during the process, and that's totally up to you if you do that. Once you're ready, you may begin stuffing your pillow. Be sure not to take your hands and crumple them into a ball when you are stuffing them. Just try to stretch out the fiberfill when you fill it, so that way you won't have a lumpy pillow. When you're finished stuffing your pillow, make sure that it's pretty even. You can simply just take your hand and with your fingers kind of flatten out the fluff. Be sure to get stuffing in your corners by simply, I think it works best taking your finger and doing that, or there is a stick in your fiberfill bag. Once you feel it's all ready, you then need to hand sew and stitch it shut. Go ahead and fold in your raw edge, and when you see a pretty straight line going across the top, you fold it until everything is straight. You might want to pin your material in place. Take the pin and put it lengthwise in a couple different spots, and that simply just holds your seam together so you're ready to hand sew. Once you have your hand sewing needle ready, you're going to sew like we have before. Take your needle and you're moving forward. You simply dip down on the left, grab some material, pull the needle through, go directly over where it came out on one end and insert the needle on the other, pull forward. Notice I have a really pleasant color of thread chosen. Anything else would stick out. You want this to blend in, and then go all the way until the end, going back and forth. When you get to the end, you're going to tie off your needle by pulling the needle through the material, turning it back around and going through the loop. You're going to do that 3 times. And then when you're finished, you're just going to simply cut it short. And there you have it.